Okay, let's jump right in. I want you to think about our universal modern struggle for just a second. You know that pit in your stomach feeling you get when you're scrolling through the news? Or maybe when you get a sudden, totally unexpected health diagnosis? Or when the economy takes a terrifying nosedive? Right. Where exactly do we run when we're faced with all these chaotic, invisible threats? It's this hum in the background of our sleek, everyday lives. We build our routines, we pad our savings accounts, we install security systems, but at the end of the day, human life is incredibly fragile.
And really, this idea is what we're all desperately chasing, a sanctuary. Sure, we don't lay awake at night worrying about mythological beasts in the woods anymore, but we absolutely still crave a perfect, impenetrable safe space from the sheer unpredictability of modern life. We want a guarantee, right? An absolute guarantee that our families, our health, and our futures are shielded from the storm. But we have to ask, where does that kind of security actually exist?
Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive into one of the most famous pieces of ancient literature in existence, Psalm 91. But we're going to look at it through a completely different lens today. We're transforming it from, just a simple, comforting poem you might see printed on a greeting card into what it originally was meant to be, a profound, cosmic declaration of God's absolute authority over the forces of chaos. To the ancient mind, this wasn't just pretty poetry. This was a literal map of reality.
So, let's start with ancient gods and cosmic order.
To really grasp this text, we have to time travel back a bit to the ancient Near East, and their world was entirely different from ours. When a disease struck an ancient city, they didn't have microscopes to go looking for bacteria, right? Their world was filled with terrifying, uncontrollable forces that they believed were actual living deities. They literally worshipped diseases as gods. If a plague swept through, they fully believed it was the work of entities like Resheph, the Canaanite god of plague, who was known as the Lord of the Arrow. Or they lived in terror of Keteb, this demonic desert wind that brought sheer destruction at noon. They lived in a state of constant, waking terror of these hostile, unseen forces.
But when you think about it, the demons of the ancient world are exactly like the uncontrollable, chaotic forces of our modern lives. They just have different names and sleek modern settings. They feared Resheph's arrows. We fear airborne viruses and sudden economic collapse. The profound vulnerability of just being human? Yeah, that hasn't changed a bit.
In the academic research on this topic, there's a brilliant phrase that summarizes this ancient worldview perfectly. It says, the universe is portrayed as contested space. The universe wasn't neutral territory to them. It was a constant raging battlefield between divine order and rebellious chaos. And if you stepped outside the boundaries of divine protection, well, you were entirely on your own against the chaos.
Which leads us to our next section, the secret cosmic sanctuary. Now this is where the biblical answer to chaos gets incredibly beautiful. Psalm 91 opens by talking about dwelling in the secret place of the Most High. But listen, this isn't some dusty theological term or just a physical spot in a building. It's tied to something called temple cosmology, which means the ancient Israelites viewed the temple as a miniature universe. It was a picture of Eden restored, the ultimate ordered meeting point between heaven and earth. So that secret place is actually a cosmic boundary line of sacred geography where God's ordered creation completely rules.
And look at this stark contrast. Outside the sanctuary, that's exactly where you find cosmic disorder, pestilence, plagues, and predatory beasts. It's essentially the unraveling of creation itself. But inside the sanctuary, you find refuge, truth, protection, and life. Dwelling inside this sacred space literally insulates the believer from the forces of decreation that roam freely on the outside. And this is where the text does something absolutely radical for its time. It boldly demythologizes those ancient plague gods we were just talking about. It looks straight at the terrifying arrow that flies by day or the pestilence that stalks in darkness, and it completely strips them of their divine status. It declares to the ancient world, hey, these aren't autonomous rival gods that you need to be terrified of. They are subordinate forces, and they are completely and entirely under the supreme authority of the one true God, Yahweh.
All right, let's move on to relationship over magic.
This brings us to a massive paradigm shift. If you genuinely believe you're surrounded by chaotic, plague-shooting gods, how in the world do you protect your family? Well, neighboring cultures relied heavily on magic. Archaeologists have actually dug up these ancient incantation bowls that families would literally bury face down under their doorways to trap demons. They used magical amulets and spells just to manipulate the gods. But the biblical text firmly rejects all of that. Psalm 91 insists that divine protection is never a magic trick. It's based strictly on a covenant relationship.
It's about knowing God, loving God, and obediently dwelling with Him.
As this quote puts it so perfectly, the believer trusts God himself, not sacred objects. God isn't a magical amulet. He's not a transactional formula where you just say the right magic words to force his protection. True protection comes from intimacy with who he actually is. It's the difference between, memorizing a spell and knowing the king of the universe personally.
Okay, so how do we apply this? Let's look at 3 anchors for today.
Let's distill all of this incredible academic history into the core message for our modern lives. I mean, how does understanding ancient Near Eastern demons and temple cosmology actually help you tomorrow morning? Well, here are your 3 main takeaways. First, God demythologizes our fears. Whatever chaos you're facing right now, economic, medical, relational, it's not an autonomous God. God rules the chaos. Second, He desires a relationship over a magic trick. You don't have to chant the perfect prayer to earn His love. You're invited into a covenant trust. And third, our ultimate security is eternal, not just a temporary physical immunity.
Consider this profound reality for a second. Human beings return to dust. Those who dwell in God never lose their true dwelling. The text never promises that believers won't face earthly hardships or mortality, but it beautifully shows us how to live confidently, right in the middle, between the reality of our fragile mortality and the absolute certainty of resurrection. Our true dwelling place simply cannot be touched by worldly chaos.
So this is how you actually apply this cosmic reality to your life. You can walk out the door tomorrow not with some magical, superstitious guarantee that nothing bad will ever happen to you, but with something so much deeper. You can walk out with the unshakable, profound cosmic confidence that the Most High reigns over every single detail. The chaos is bounded. It literally operates on a leash.
I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative question to reflect on this week. Are you just visiting God in emergencies, treating Him like a cosmic 911 when the chaos gets a little too close? Or are you truly dwelling in His cosmic sanctuary every single day? Choose to make the Most High your everyday dwelling, and just watch how it transforms your fears.